Hello and welcome to the CFCR Fringe Flyer for Friday, August 10th. I'm Ishmael Darrow. This is also the last Fringe Flyer because, well, the Fringe ends tomorrow. Tomorrow's the last day, so get out there and see some plays and do some more fringing while you can. On today's show, an interview with performance poet Jem Rolls.
Total victory in the war between the generations, the eternal war between the generations. And to be honest, folks, it's not looking good for the young folks.
Also, a conversation with Terry Schroell and Michael Neuert, who star in Lip Service.
Well, then you have to put on your serious tone of voice. Oh, really? Well, that's really an aha.
You can catch this and all the previous episodes of the CFCR Fringe Flyer on our website at cfcr.ca. Performance poet Jem Rolls is originally from the UK, but he has spent much of the last few years on the road touring the Fringe circuit. You can catch his show 10 Starts and an End at the Oskayak High School gym while he's in Saskatoon. There are 2 shows left, including one today at 6:10, so if you want to see it, stop listening right now and head over to Broadway. His final show is tomorrow at 10:30, and it actually closes out the entire festival. Jem Rolls was in studio earlier today to talk about his poetry. Jem Rolls, thank you for joining me on CFCR.
Well, hello.
You are originally from Surrey, and you most recently lived in Edinburgh. But for the last 2 years, you have, you say you pay rent in Edmonton. What made you move to Canada?
I don't actually consider that I've moved to Canada, to be honest. Like you say, I most recently lived in Edinburgh. That was 6 years ago. I haven't properly had a home since then, and I've kind of been wandering around the planet, really. But anyway, my girlfriend is doing an MFA in playwriting at the U of A in Edmonton, so that's why I've been there. So I've only been there I haven't actually been there since early May, but I have been paying rent, which cheers me up no end. And I'm going to spend 2 more weeks there during the Edmonton Fringe before I fly off to Victoria for the Victoria Fringe, and basically don't go back to Edmonton after that. So yeah, but quite a long time ago, I realised that if I was going to do the Fringe tour, I was nailed to this long trail across Canada, which is very arduous and a huge amount of fun, most fun I've ever had, really. And I realised that I didn't really have to live anywhere. And also, I was living in Edinburgh and I was running poetry shows and poetry slams and having a very good time doing it, to be honest. And I just thought that, well, this is good, but it's a bit like you either administrate or you create. And very few people I've met can both seriously create some work whilst administering some kind of arts thing, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't either, so I had to basically stop writing fabulous press releases so I could attempt to write fabulous poems.
Well, let's talk about that fantastic poetry you're writing. You are a performance poet, a spoken word artist, maybe by another name. I
call myself a performance poet. Basically, there's no great handle for it. Spoken word sounds a bit dull to me. Performance poet sounds like it's got too many syllables, but I'll stick with that. And also, I've been calling myself a performance poet for about 12 years now, so I shouldn't really sort of quibble too much. Though it did actually take me a long time to come out of the closet and admit, yes, folks, actually, I'm a poet, yes, because it seems such a terrible thing to have turned into, and I don't really know how it happened. It was all part of my long project to never really do anything ever, actually, because obviously the world's run by terrible people, and I just thought, basically, I'm going to be poor and have nothing to do with this ghastly world that we're surrounded by, which is run by terrible people. So that was always my logic, but I basically failed to do nothing because I turned into a poet. And you would have thought, would you not, yeah, Ishmael? You would have thought that a poet was a very good way of not doing anything, because basically what happens to most poets is very little indeed, but it's just not how it worked out for me. So basically, having had no intention of really ever getting a job, I suddenly got this serious job, which is ridiculous amounts of hard work, which is being a poet across the Fringe Trail, which is, 60 shows in like 110 days, and is very full on and totally exhausting, especially seeing I just turned 50.
Well, you seem to have a problem with the identification of poet. Mm-hmm. In your mind, what is the problem with most poets and poetry, and why do you think performance poetry, what you do, is different or better?
Well, it's certainly different. I think the problem with poetry is just in an horrible ghetto, and it's just got unsuccess written all over it. It's just like you get those flat cuboids in the bookshops, and they just don't look like they're going anywhere. They don't look like anyone bought them yesterday, or today, or tomorrow. And it's just a sort of flat, dull world. And it's just this strange that people, so many talented people, so many creative people, put all their energy into that and accept so little. I mean, sales are abject, and really, poetry in the age we live in, which is an age of bite-sized ideas, a novel should logically be a harder sell than a bunch of poems because it's bite-sized ideas, and and you can, in a sense, go into an idea thoroughly in 100 lines, really, and that's part of the art. There's a certain sort of terseness about poetry, and a kind of getting to the meat of the matter should really suit the age that we're in, but it doesn't seem to suit it at all. And nobody sells in Britain. Basically, no one sells anything in Canada. They don't sell anything. I mean, the top 20 poets in Britain, hardly any of them sell more than 1,000 copies a year, which is just pathetic. I mean, I get an audience of 4,500 across Canada, which no one selling books in Canada probably does that, or hardly anyone. And if they do, it's because they're genuinely famous and they're probably a novelist like Michael Ondaatje.
We'll get to that in just a moment. I'd love to hear that piece. But the reason you can write something like that, I think, is because you have toured Canada a lot. You've done the Fringe circuit a few years now. Yeah. And you've built some impressions of different places in Canada.
Well, yeah, I mean, most places are friendly, and, the places the places I didn't like at all would be London or Calgary. I mean, people in London, Ontario are just ruder than anyone else in Canada. I mean, in Saskatoon, I think hardly anyone is ever rude to me, because let's face it, I am pestering them in lineups. Not everybody wants to talk to me, but most people are pretty civil, even though they don't want to talk to me. But, in London, they're just plain rude. And I'm sort of, right, okay. Well, in a sense, it shouldn't have shocked me, because I come from London. I spent a long time living in London, England, where people are pretty rude as well. But anyway, it was just a bit of a shock coming from Canadians. So I don't want to go back there, really. And in Calgary, I always thought that every word I used had one syllable too many, shall we soon. So I told them where to go, to be honest. And, I was never terribly impressed with Ottawa. But, I have it's a great tour. I mean, I started in Montreal. It's a fabulous city, one of my favourite cities on earth. Finished in Vancouver. Again, it's a great city, And so it's, I'm sort of lucky in the way I in a sense, I get a chance to do this, and I think across the tour, I've met, well, in the past 10 years, I bet you I've met more fringers than anyone else. And by fringers, I mean audience, performers, people who work in the cafes, the stall holders, the fringe staff, the fringe volunteers, just everyone. I've just met more of them because I've done so much flying, and I do talk to people the whole way across. So in a sense, I've got a more accurate picture, I think, of what people are like than anyone else, because I've just done so much talking. Not that people necessarily want to see me. I think they've had enough of me in Victoria. Certain people see me coming and just kind of flee or turn their backs because they know what's coming, which is an Englishman talking a lot.
It seems as though something that you can do with performance poetry, as opposed to more traditional, writing a book sort of poetry, is that you can tell immediately when something is a hit, and you can also tell when something just doesn't really connect.
Yeah.
Have you had any experiences where your poetry just didn't go over very well?
Well, I've had the experience of pieces that I've put a lot of work into just aren't working as well as I thought they do. And again, by the time I get to Saskatoon, they've left the show. Oh, again, they might crop up in next year's show. The piece I finished the show with was in my 2007 show for a while, but I took it out because it just seemed to have the wrong texture for the piece. So, yes, you can. And just in terms of, like I say, when I was performing in Calgary, I just thought that, well, am I actually speaking the same language as these people? Because there's some part of this normal part of this process that just isn't happening. And I don't know what it is, but I hope it doesn't go on for much longer. Oh, God, I've stopped.
My guest today is Jem Rolls. He's a performance poet here in town for the Fringe. He's got 2 shows left at the Oskayak High School Gym, one today at 6:10 and one tomorrow at 10:30. Jem, we're almost out of time, but if you are willing to do so, we could squeeze in one more poem. 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good to me. That's kind of about a 3-minute piece. So here we go. So this piece actually involves a total victory in the war between the generations, the eternal war between the generations. And to be honest, folks, it's not looking good for the young folks. So here we go.
Okay, this is a quick editor's note that the poem Jem is about to perform does have a bad word in it. So if that's something you're sensitive to, turn the radio off now for the next 3 minutes. Okay, here he goes.
So, I woke up one morning and I saw that the night before I had written, "The world is young and in love with itself." And that's nice. But then on the next page I'd written, "The world is old and bitter and hating the envious of the young." Because the day before, I got up, got the number 8 bus downtown and walked straight in the mall. And the first thing I see is some noisy 10-year-olds. But then I see some 50-year-old couples tooting at the noisy 10-year-olds. And I think, were you never young? But then I think, well, hey, it was always this way. Because I grew up in an atmosphere of intense disapproval of the young, of crusty, crotchety, crabby, post-empire British people going, "These young people today will never amount to anything. We're doomed. We're doomed." And the hair and the noise and the clothes and the moves might change, but it's still pretty much, "These young people today will never amount to anything. We're doomed. We're doomed." Because I bet you a few million years back when the first proto-human, a hominid, stuck a foot on the jungle floor next to some nice stretching African savanna, I bet you there was a whole bunch of disapproving elders up in the greenery shaking their heads and twiddling their opposable thumbs and going, "These young people today are an awful rabble. We're doomed. We're doomed." Because, you know, from ancient Greece, from 800 BC, there is a bewailing litany which reads, "I see no hope for the future of our people if we are dependent on the frivolous youth of today." Which is another way of saying, these young people today are a ghastly bunch of oiks. We're doomed. We're doomed. Because, you know, from ancient Babylon, from even further back, there is apparently a clay tablet which loosely translates as, "These young people today are a shocking gaggle of rotters. We're doomed. We're doomed." And I have to admit, sometimes I look at the young folks and I think, this lot are going to run the world. Hope I die before I get old. But on the other hand, people my age are now running the world. And how well are we doing? The forthcoming environmental catastrophe the world is inflicting upon itself and intends to leave as inheritances for all its descendants, like a mountain of picnic refuse at a once famed beauty spot. Because what I reckon us old folks do is get there first by blaming the young folks before they have a chance to grow up, get smart and blame us. Which is nice and mature and adult of us, because one thing about this world is loads more old people than there used to be, than there's ever been. And we are the ones with the power. But why should we care what the world ends up like? We ain't going to be here so we can have a nice time in the sun and the greenery. Well, whoops, how did that happen? The young folks get a lot of time in the shit. That's the wet shit and the dry shit. That'll sort out the disrespectful oiks. So chew on global warming, shriveled diversity and devastated coastlines. Because we can put the consequences of our actions into a time machine and send it off to the future. It ain't going to be our problem. Hard luck, sunshine. Because never before has one generation had so much power to destroy the future. And what are we doing with that power? We are using it. Hard luck, sunshine. So chew on filthy seas and filthy air. That'll sort you out for being so young, so disgustingly, horribly young, so blatantly, outrageously, sick-makingly young. Oscar Wilde said, "Youth is wasted on the young." But what he didn't say was, so let's waste their youth. Thank you.
Jem Rolls, thank you so much for joining me today at CFCR.
Thank you.
You can catch Jem Rolls' show 10 Starts and an End today at 6:10 and tomorrow at 10:30 at the Oskayak High School Gym. Lip Service is a comedy about two hosts on a morning TV show with vastly different work ethics and personalities, starring local theater veterans Michael Neuert and Terry Schroell. Neuert plays Gilbert Hutchinson, a veteran journalist whose audience is turning elsewhere. Schroell plays Len Burdett, the young hotshot brought in as co-host to boost the ratings. Based on a script by Howard Corder, Lip Service was also made into a TV film directed by William H. Macy. Schroell and Neuert, who self-directed the Fringe production, have updated some of the language and also added local references, such as the funny radio ads for local businesses played between set changes. There's only one show left, and you can see lip service tomorrow at 3:50 at the Victoria School upstairs auditorium. I had a chance earlier today to talk to the actors about the play. Michael Neuert and Terry Schroell, thank you for joining me on CFCR.
You're welcome.
Greetings.
Salutations.
Mike, please.
Hello.
I just saw lip service last night, and it appeals to me as somebody with maybe media and journalistic aspirations. But what attracted you to the script originally?
Mike?
Oh,
That's right. I got it and showed it to you, and you liked it.
Was I going to say anything otherwise?
All right, then.
I found the script in a...
No, you did not find the script. I found the script.
At a garage sale?
Dude just sort of rode on my coattails, you know? I mean, unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
It's a script that it's like over 20 years old. Howard Corder, a friend of mine, had done a different show, and I ordered this other short script and read it and loved it just as much as the full-length show that I had done, or that a friend had done. And yeah, Mike and I were talking last summer.
Yes, and Terry had mentioned how much he wanted to do a show with me, and I suggested that I look at the script, and he found it and gave it to me, and I felt sorry for him, and I said, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to help you along in your career.
You gave me money to be part of this show, all right?
We're not talking about
a substantial amount, ladies and gentlemen.
My wife, she doesn't need to know that.
It's too late now.
Okay, but Terry, I've always enjoyed working with Terry. He's a fine actor, and I've worked with him a couple of times. It was the first chance for us to do a two-hander, and I relish the time that I've been able to spend with him and watch him develop.
Now, Michael, you play Gilbert Hutchinson, who is the older,
more attractive,
let's say, host.
A little stouter.
Being pushed
Mike,
out.
I sound a hell of a lot more fabulous than you do right now. Okay.
We're on radio. Maybe you should say heck of a. Anyways, I'm sorry, Ishmael. Go ahead.
But I was going to ask, since you chose this play, which was written some time ago, were you worried at all about the changes that have come to TV, and how did you update it? Because you do localize it as well.
Well, yeah, Terry and I discussed that, and we saw parts in the script where it needed to be updated to, and of course it needed to be localized, like you say, and that wasn't too difficult.
Not really. I think the central theme of this is basically, the shallowness that happens more often than not with TV, radio, anything like that. And unfortunately, that's just part of the business, especially, you look at something like Fox. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you speak articulately enough, that's fine, but you still have to look good, plain and simple. That is just the be-all and end-all of something like that. You hear on radio, I mean, Mike looks like a gargoyle, but it doesn't matter because he sounds fabulous. Go ahead, Mike, say something.
Gargoyle.
That is a very nice deep rasp, actually. But
it goes along with the ruddy complexion.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, I have to agree with everything Terry says because he beats me if I don't.
Well, some of the updates are subtle, and others seem a little more clear that perhaps the play needed an updating. For example, there's a few mentions of the internet and opportunities on the internet, which your character, Terry, Len pushes.
Yes.
And you get the sense that he doesn't fully know what really he's getting into.
He's clueless.
Yeah.
He's clueless. He just, somebody says something, it sounds good, he listens and then thinks, oh yeah, this is I've got an internet deal. Ooh, that's going to pay a lot. He's a fool.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what that originally was, or was there an earlier joke that you guys updated?
Well, I mean, this would have been 1985, so obviously it would have been a cable deal. Mm-hmm. A cable deal. And talk about dating yourself. I mean, anyone born after 1990 would go, what does that mean, cable? What is cable?
Right, because that's just TV now.
Exactly.
Yeah, for those who still have television.
Indeed.
Good Lord, I feel so archaic. I have 3 TVs, none of which work.
Some of the, in between the set changes, or not set changes so much as scene breaks, there's some very funny ads that are played, and they're all sort of local takes on the ads you might hear in your car or on TV.
Yes.
Can you give me a couple examples of some of those ads, and what made you guys, where that idea came from?
Well, first off, I think we were. We didn't like the fact that, like, there are, what is it, 17 scenes?
Well, actually, originally, I believe there's 19
19
scenes.
yeah.
19 scenes. We cut out a few and we gelled a couple.
Yes.
So we brought it down to 16, but we didn't like the fact that, our audience was going to sit there through the scene changes and it was just going to be black and it was just going to be us, shuffling around, getting ready for the next scene. It tends to, you lose your audience in situations like that. And we thought, well, actually, Terry and I both thought, but I mean, it was, I have to give credit to where credit is due. And Terry came up with a wonderful idea. Let's do some commercials. And we thought, well, let's do some funny commercials. So we looked on TV what we could make fun of.
And of course, the TV promos.
Yes.
All that back.
CKUD, a station.
Join us tomorrow on CKUD, where, that sort of, and then of course we just made it localized and of course as funny as we thought we were.
As funny as we thought we were.
And my personal favorite one is the Price Watchers jingle. I love that jingle. I actually met a friend whose mother actually sang that jingle, and this would have been, I think he said, like late 70s or early 80s. Love that jingle. Bring it back, please.
And then brought in a few of our friends to do the voiceover work and the singing, and it all gelled.
Yeah. Last night, while the Price Watchers jingle was playing during a set change, I happened to look back and I saw the stage manager, Tracy Sutherland, actually singing it and bobbing her head to it silently.
Well, thank you for telling us that. Now we're going to have to dock her pay for not paying attention to the cues.
Very severe chastising when we do the show on Saturday.
We have to spank her.
I hope
Price Watchers, the friendly people.
You have to learn to control Terry, or he's
where
going to go off on his little tangents.
there is someone who cares. Thank you. Safe drive home.
Did you tell him this was an audition?
I may have, just to get a better performance.
Store with service, and that's
and he can't
not
even
all.
sing,
Come on in and see us.
If you like that voice, that was Michael singing.
No, they know the difference.
Now, your two characters are fairly different from one another. Gil is he's made out to be a more experienced, serious journalist, although he maybe doesn't fully buy his own myth. And Len is a real career climber who seems very
He'll step over anybody. He'll step over his mother to get to the next step.
Did you have any certain models or that you use for your characters?
I think there's some pretty obvious ones around,
I'm not gonna
even around town. But honestly, I mean, I've lived in Vancouver, I lived in Toronto, and you turn on the local news, and you always see that person, that sits. I mean, here I am in front of it. I mean, this is actually my speaking voice. It sounds pretty pretentious, but that's just how I sound. And then when here I am in front of a microphone, all I have to do is just turn it on, and then all of a sudden I'm just talking, and that's fabulous because all you have to do is just keep talking, and smile and laugh, and that's all there is to it.
Right, and then if anything serious comes up, you feel completely lost.
Well, then you have to put on your serious tone of voice. Oh, really? Well, that's really exactly. And I mean, you can see it here in town on TV stations, but you see it everywhere. Mm-hmm. It's just those people that are able to continue talking and smiling. Entertainment Tonight, give me a break. These are cardboard cutouts. All they do is smile and go, so, and that's it.
Well, but they make a lot of money doing it.
Yes, they do.
Absolutely.
How about that?
Not knocking that. Love the money.
Michael, what about your character, Gilbert Hutchinson? Any models for that one?
No, I pretty much just used the script as my guide. I think maybe I looked at some local or some national announcers. Certainly wasn't meaning to mock them. Just came out that way.
But I mean, remember back, in the 70s and the 80s.
I remember, watching Knowlton Nash and
Harvey Kirk
and Harvey Kirk, and I mean, I think that's the kind of broadcaster that he was. But no, I don't think he was famous or anything. As he mentions, he gets very upset with the fact that this guy keeps insisting that he's done all these wonderful things, and he doesn't think that what he's done has been fulfilling, because now his career is coming to an end, and he's seeing that end happening a little too soon.
Mm-hmm. That was Michael Neuert and Terry Schroell earlier today. You can see their play Lip Service playing at the Victoria School upstairs auditorium, and there's only one show left, tomorrow at 3:50. And that's it for the program. You've been listening to the CFCR Fringe Flyer for Friday, August 10th. You can hear this and all the previous episodes at cfcr.ca. Tomorrow is the last day of the Fringe, everybody, so if there's some plays you've been meaning to see, now is the time. On a personal note, it's been a lot of fun doing the Fringe Flyer for you. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening as well. I want to send a quick thank you out to Franny Rollick, who helped conduct some of the interviews you've heard. And of course, a big thank you to all the performers, organizers, volunteers, and everybody else who makes the Fringe possible. Until next time, this is Ishmael Darrow signing off.
La queue dressée